Welcome back to the Intangible Podcast. I'm excited to dive into the story of Emily Fischnaller. Before I really, start this conversation, I want to read off some of your highlights here, which I think is pretty amazing. You started Luge at the age of 10, which is pretty impressive to start that early. You joined the U.S. Senior World Cup circuit at 16, Junior World Champion 2013, World Cup gold medalist 2017, two-time World Champion, bronze medal 2019 through 2025, second, two-time Olympian 2018, 2022, and then you survived a career-threatening Olympic crash in 2018, and then you went on to complete one of the toughest, most difficult comebacks in elite winter sports, and so kudos to you for that. Then you turn around and finish. It was the fastest start in 2025. So I mean, just an amazing story that I'm really excited to dive into. And you also married one of your fellow losers, Dominique. And so, Emily, welcome to the Intangible Podcast.
Wow, thank you. I don't usually hear my credentials laid out like that, so thanks. I feel I did do some good things throughout this career.
I think it became apparent to me that as athletes we tend not to look back to see what we've done, but I think that's still very important because that also lays the foundation of where we're going. We know we have those skill sets to make those transitions, to move forward in life. So it's good to have a reflection. So Emily, yes. I'm excited to get into your story. So I could imagine as a kid, well, I can't imagine. I don't think most kids imagine growing up dreaming to go and compete in the luge.
Right.
And so when I look at your story, you were identified, discovered through an ID program. And so what was it like to really find your sport at an early age? And then what was your home life like that really drove you to say, I'm committed to do this?
Yeah. So my older sister actually did luge as well. And that's how I saw it. But she got involved because my dad is originally from upstate New York, which is close by. In the U.S., we only have 2 luge tracks. It's bobsled, skeleton, and luge. It's all a combined track. We have one in Lake Placid, New York, and we have one in Park City, Utah. So the to be regional to a track is pretty slim pickings out there. Right. And we were actually living in South Carolina at the time, so we were not close by at all.
Wow.
But we were visiting my family, and my aunt just saw an ad in the newspaper, and USA Luge still uses this recruiting program called the Slider Search. And right now it's a White Castle Slider Search, and it's how we recruit kids still today. And my sister got involved through that. And so it really was just an ad in the newspaper that brought my family into the sport. And then now it's probably about 30 years later, here I am. I just qualified for my 3rd Olympic team. So
congratulations. That's exciting.
Thanks. Thank you. But at the time, my sister got involved, and I was 7 years old when I saw her getting into the sport. And like most younger siblings, you look up to your older siblings. And
right.
So I just looked up to my sister, Megan, and I said, you know what? I want to do that. And then when I was 10, I was old enough to try out myself. And that was the start of the end.
Yeah, that's awesome. Now, was it when you looked up to her, was it like, I want to do better than her? Or was it just like, oh, I just want to do that? Because, as a younger sibling, it's always that competitive nature that really starts to kind of spark that interest.
Totally. So my sister is 6 years older than me. So there's quite a bit of an age gap. Okay. So at first I was not thinking about beating her. Yeah. I was really just thinking, that's pretty cool. And there was something, the Olympics is a very shiny thing.
Yeah.
So they dangle that in front of you right from the start. Like, you could be an Olympian. So I really just wanted that for myself. And I didn't think about my sister. And then in 2010, that was my first round of Olympic trials. And it came really close with the both of us. And that was kind of unexpected right away. But my sister always told me, the day you beat me is the day I retire. And I beat her that season, and she retired that season.
Oh, man, a woman of her word.
Yeah, but it was all in good fun. She wanted to move on, and she got her goal. She became an Olympian, and then it was time for her to move on and do something else. So it all worked out.
So it's in the blood. It's in the DNA. That's awesome. So when did you realize that this is something that you were good at? And when did you realize that this wasn't something that you was just good at, but then you started to believe and you started to become it?
I think when I was 14, that was my first year traveling and competing on kind of the junior and the youth World Cup circuit, really. And it was the first time that I thought, oh, like I'm good. And I think that was a little early, but I think that was early because I was already looking at my older sister. So I was already applying myself with a little bit more intention behind it because I saw what I wanted to be from a really young age. That's why, I mean, anyone with an older sibling knows that, right? You kind of get that little cue into what it could be. So you work a little bit harder. So I was about 14 when I thought, all right, I could be good at this. 16, I almost made my first Olympic team. And then 18, I joined the military, and then it became my job as well. So then it was kind of, those were like the shifts in my thought process, I would say, with Luge. But yeah.
Well, I think that early on success, when you think about that, what did the early on success teach you? And then what did it hide from you?
It's funny. I learned a lot more from the failures than the success. So
I could imagine that's a tough sport to be in. That there's a lot of
you're always failing.
Yeah.
We're timed to the thousandth of a second. So and it's not like in some kind of other sports where if you make a mistake, you can turn that gear and make up for it right after it happens. Once you make the mistake, you've lost all your speed and it's done. From the successes, I think I just enjoyed them. I didn't really learn that much from them when I was younger, but from the failures, those hit so hard at first. Yeah. And I took them really to heart. And then I finally started learning from them more, which was a nice transition of.
Yeah, I mean, I think the reason for that question for me is that when you think about early success, you can become complacent too early. But it sounds like within this sports, there's so many more failures than there are successes, and so it kind of keeps you from getting complacent.
Absolutely, I always say in Luge, you're always chasing a perfect run, but you're never going to get it ever. So, and even today, I was at the track, and there were some para athletes training. And I said, and they were kind of new to the sports. And I said, well, you don't have to look very far in the sliding sports for a challenge. Like there's just one after the other. And they said, that makes a lot of sense. They're coming into this world, but it really is. It's just full of challenges, which I love. It's maddening at some points, right? Like when you just feel like you're so close. So it can be maddening, but also the joy of kind of when everything clicks together is pretty special.
Yeah. Now, I can imagine, I mean, again, Luge, I got a chance to experience it in the Winter Olympics in Vancouver when I was playing with Seattle. And so I took a liking to the sport. And so, not many people really, I guess a lot of people who listen to this podcast probably don't know anything about it. So can you take us through a day of training? What is training like for you? Because we know what football and basketball and baseball training looks like. But in your sport, what does that look like for you guys?
Yeah, so we do train year round. A lot of people, like you said, you only kind of see it at the Olympics, which is once every 4 years, but we're working year round the whole quad. And in the summertime, it probably looks pretty similar to a lot of other sports. We are heavy on the Olympic weightlifting. So we're in the weight room. We also have a refrigerated building in Lake Placid, New York, where we have ice where we can practice our starts, because the start is the only time we can physically propel ourselves down. After that, you're working with physics and trying to carry that speed and working with the pressures of the curves. But the only chance that you have to physically make yourself go faster is the first couple seconds of the run. So we have a room that has kind of a refrigerated ramp in it that we practice our starts on. And that's probably, so we roll right into the other. So we do starts, we go into the weight room, you have a little break, you go into sports med for recovery and all of the injury prevention and everything. And then once we get into the season, we're at the track. During a World Cup week, we're limited on our amount of runs. So I can only take about 6 runs in the week. down the track. But outside of that, you're doing visualization training, you're doing all your strength training, you're maintaining it throughout the season, and sports medicine. So that after you have an injury only becomes more and more important, as any athlete knows.
Right. And what did nutrition look like for you? Like, how many calories were you have to throw back a day?
It's, so I always tell my coaches, like, I'm not a numbers person. I'm a vibes person on those things. But in general, it is a gravity sport. So theoretically, the heavier you are, the faster you go. But at the same time, there's kind of some, like, you really have to find rhythm and comfort on your sled. And I've been bigger than I am now in chasing that advantage. But for me, it becomes a disadvantage. Like, I really have to be comfortable within my body as well. So you push it as far as you can within your comfortable zone. Yeah, absolutely. I remember one year I was a 300-pound center. And so one year I wanted to just kind of lean up. I guess around that time I was about 315. I wanted to lean up but not lose weight. And so I remember eating 8,000 calories a day. Oh my gosh.
To get to 14% body fat and at 315 pounds. And I just couldn't imagine doing that year in and year out just to
How did you feel at that though?
I felt amazing. That was probably some of the best performance I had was when I kind of leaned out the way that I did. But just the meal prep and the meal, getting that kind of food down day in and day out, that's a job in itself.
It really is. And especially we start our World Cup season or a preseason, really. We start traveling at the end of September. And then we're on the road basically until the end of February. So when you're like, a lot of that is out of your control. You're given the meals that you're given, but then adding in those calories that you can, like through supplements or through, those grocery store runs of things you can add in between meals. That's where I try and put up my calorie count.
3, 2, 1. Parents. The recruiting process is one of the biggest decisions you'll ever face for your child. And talent isn't enough. Coaches are looking for the intangibles like composure, coachability, communication, and leadership. And that's what Team Q measures. Get clear insights into your child's intangibles so they stand out when it matters most. Go to teamq.io and help your athlete unlock greatness.
Tell me about the first moment that you felt fear, real fear, and then you felt real belief on the track, because I can imagine going down steep and you got no control, but just laying your body on it and going that it's just.
Well, I like that you paired them together. You're like, when did you feel fear? And then when did you have belief? Because they really are. It does work that way. Yeah. But for me, we start so young and we start incrementally. So you start low on the track, and then as you develop your skill set, you work your way up. So I really didn't have fear within the sport until after I crashed. Crashing in general is part of the sport. It's part of learning. Most of them, you just kind of tip over, ride it out, and it's no big deal. You learn from it and move on. But in the 2018 Olympics, I crashed really hard, and I walked away, but I walked away with a broken neck and a broken back. So it was really the first time I felt the real consequences of what that could be. Right. And returning to the sled after that was the first time I had fear. But that's also why I returned. I had a coach for years who would always tell me, like, once you do something once, you're going to do it again. And that seems so basic, but he meant it for positive things and negative things. So if you skip that last exercise, like if you have core at the end of your workout program, if you skip that last thing once, you're probably going to do it again because you just gave yourself permission to do that.
Right.
And so I was afraid. I was afraid of luge and afraid of returning to the sled if my body could handle it. But I knew if I walked away from that and chose not to come back, it's like, what am I giving myself permission to do in the future? I'm giving myself permission to let fear win. Right. So I had to do it.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's tough coming back from injuries. I mean, I can give you a laundry list of all my injuries, but the moment you step back out on it, they kind of, after the first, first run or the first hit, then they kind of all go away and you feel you're back in your element. So try not to let it win. I think that's the psycho side of us as athletes.
Yes, definitely. It took a while though. And it's kind of something that for me, it's not like something that happened just once and I conquered it. It's something that, I still have a reduced amount of strength in my neck and I'm still choosing to do the sport. So when the pressures get too much and my neck is fatigued, I'm at a more vulnerable place to re-injure myself. So it's something that I'm managing now, but you learn how to manage it better and better over time.
Yeah. That body awareness is so key. So
it really
is. So you go on and you win the juniors, you win a World Cup gold. Having that success again early. What changed immediately for you when winning became truly expected?
Let's see. I think the first thing, if I'm being honest, is that expectation grows. And if you don't meet it, the failure right after that hits harder. So when I was younger, I think I felt that right at the beginning, right? It's like right after you have your first success, once that's followed by a failure, because it's going to happen, those hit me a little harder. And then I just got comfortable with it, with failure a little bit more and realized that I really do learn from that. And that's such a cue of what was going to make me better in the future. So I had to realize that it's a long game. It's not this one opportunity to win. It's really like, what do I want my long game to look like? Yeah.
In that same vein, when you're talking about it from that lens, what did the pressure feel like in your sports when it is where 100th of a second really matters? Like that feels like a lot of pressure.
Yeah, it's interesting though. Over my career, pressure has felt different. At first, I felt it in my body, right? Like you feel your heart rate creeping up a little bit. And then you develop tools to kind of work against that. It's like, okay, I learned different breathing techniques and kind of calm that down. And then at some point I'm like, I brought my body down too low. I want that pressure. Like that pressure puts my mindset kind of at a point where I perform better. So then once I did it, I think everything works like a pendulum. It's like you start course correcting and it comes one way and then you're like, oh, too far, got to come back the other way. Right. So it's just kind of managing where I want that to land. Does that make sense?
That makes a lot of sense. I mean, because that's composure. We look at, within some of the work that I'm doing, we look at composure and how do you truly train composure? And sound like that's what you've been working on. So how did you spend your time in your off season working on that composure when speed literally puts you at life risk injuries? And so like, how do you build that toolbox before you get into those moments so you can control that kind of composure? Have that kind of composure.
Yeah. I like the word composure. I like that better than I think a lot of the words that my coaches and kind of some sports psychs early on would use. Is like, you have to have confidence. And like, confidence is kind of a tough thing to just get, right? Yeah. Like it's something that feels like, all right, if you're doing well, you are confident. And when you're not doing well, you don't have it. But how do you just get it? Kind of, that was a challenge that I had. And once I realized, I just changed the words. Like your words have so much of an impact, the words that you hear. And the words that work for you are going to be different than the ones that work for your teammate because it's such a personal thing. So for me, I had to replace that with trust. So I had to trust in my training. And how was I going to trust my training? Well, I'm going to be intentional about every single thing I do. So when I'm going into the weight room and I'm doing a bent over row, my weakness on my start was that I lost connection through my feet on my sled. So when I'm doing a bent over row, I'm thinking about that. I'm thinking about my feet on the sled and I'm being solid throughout my feet when I'm just in a weight room platform. And then being intentional about all those little things just led me to trusting my training and then trusting my abilities and trust all of that kind of those layers of trust led to me actually having confidence, which then is probably your version of composure. So it's right.
Right. It's so funny because in my head, I was trying to figure out, now that the way you frame that from a composure standpoint, is about trust. So it's, is confident and Luge more about belief, or is it about trust?
I think to one person they would say belief and one person they would say trust. For me, I believe in myself that I can win, because why not me? It can be, it's why not? But I don't believe that anything will happen. But I trust that I will do my job to put myself in the best position that I can be. So it's kind of like, I don't know.
They're interchangeable, I guess. It's just trying to figure out
how you feel. Yeah, right. It's whatever clicks with you. So for me, confidence didn't click, but trust did.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, Emily, this is great. This has been a great start. I like to do a 2-minute segment in between all of this, and just like some rapid fire questions, just quick answers. So are you ready for a quick 2-minute?
I'm ready.
All right, here we go. Fastest track that you've ever been on?
Whistler, Canada.
All right, I love Whistler. My wife's from Vancouver, Canada, so we spent a lot of time in Whistler.
It's such a great spot. Yeah, I love it.
Yeah. One word to describe Olympic starts out of the gate.
Oh, intense.
Back to the composure, right? Music before a race. Are you a music person before a race, or complete silence?
I don't really like to marry myself to one or the other, because you don't really know how loud the speakers are going to be at the track. So I like music, but I'm not reliant on it. Yeah.
Okay. One habit that keeps you grounded.
Oh, I think just my family in general. I don't know if that's a habit, but I'm so lucky to have my family that I have. And, I have siblings, so it's pretty tough to not be grounded if you have siblings.
Yeah, fair enough. Especially someone who's already an Olympian. So
yeah, exactly.
Who believed in you when you don't believe in yourself?
Oh, my sister.
Your sister.
And my husband, but from the young age, my sister.
Right. Best country to race in?
Oh, USA.
Yeah,
USA is my favorite. But I hope, I think Italy is going to be pretty loud in a few weeks when we're there for the Olympics. So Cortina is going to be pretty great.
Yeah. All right. This question is, I'm excited to kind of hear your answer on this question. What's harder, physical preparation or mental preparations for you?
I don't like the word hard. Sorry, here I am with my words again. But because hard.
Reframe.
Okay, reframe. What's more challenging? More challenging, I think, is the mental side. Yeah.
Mental side. Yeah.
The physical side is clear cut. You can write a program for it, just follow it, and that's what it is. The mental side is a little bit more of an adventure.
Yeah, fair enough. I think that's probably true. I think as the older you get, the more you become aware of how much word matters. I think for most athletes, you kind of start to trend toward like that mental piece, because there's so many aspects as a human that we have to deal with. So
definitely. Life is messy. Yeah.
Yes. One thing fans misunderstand about Luge.
Oh, I think a lot of people will look and say, oh, they're just laying there. Not true.
Which I could imagine that core is hugely important in that sport.
It is. Our core, our posterior chain, and technology as well. There's a lot of technology in our sleds that each country develops on their own. So there's just a lot more to it than us just laying there on a sled.
Okay.
If it looks like that, we're doing a good job. Yeah.
All right. Last one. Speed in one word.
Oh, fun.
Yeah. Awesome. I would have said it's scary, but that's just who I am. So no, thank you for that. That's awesome. Awesome 2-minute segment. Now, you talked about the technology in your sleds, and I'm in the technology world. And so when you talk about that, what does that look like? What's in sleds that gives you those competitive edges?
Yeah, there's a lot of components. So within our rule book, we have some dimensions of our sleds are standardized, but within that, we have a lot of play. So our steels alone, kind of what you would picture as a runner. So most people, it's like the metal that we're actually coming to contact with the ice on. There's so many angles that we can work with. There's different types of steel we can work with. There's different treatments that you can send the steels through to reduce the amount of friction that we have with the ice. And on top of that, there's a lot of variables that we can play with. So we're kind of towing that line of wanting to give ourselves enough control on the sled. But with control, you're kind of fighting you're creating friction to have control. So you want to have the least amount as possible, but also stay safe. Right.
Okay. Man, I didn't realize there was so much technology in those sleds.
Yeah, and we have it is pretty cool, and we're really fortunate. We work with a lot of our team sponsors work, and actually we do with a lot. They will provide us with engineer hours as well, so we'll work with engineers to kind of talk about, hey, what can we do to these elements to make them faster? Because when you're timed to the thousandth of a second, every little bit matters, and it's maddening.
Yeah, well. I'm excited to really dive a little bit more into the technology side of that because I love technology and I think it's cool. So thank you for sharing that. Now, I asked Emily before we got started if I could talk about, crash, because I know there's trauma and fear, and I know what you've been training, I wanted to make sure it was okay to talk about. And so in 2018, you had a crash that fractured your neck and your back. Those are life-changing moments. What do you remember, and how did you start to put your 1 foot forward mentally to get yourself back to the stage that you ultimately ended up getting back to?
Yeah, I think the first kind of interesting part is the crash itself. As I'm going in, it was on my 4th run of the Olympics, and like when I was just talking about sled control and speed and everything, I was pushing it. And I knew the moment that I had pushed too far because, and it was so cold in Korea. So when the ice is cold and hard, we have less grip as well. So in one moment, I knew I had pushed too far, and just kind of due to the dimensions of the track there, I kind of went up in the air. And as I hit the top of the track, I realized you're a victim of physics at this point. And what comes up comes down, but you're watching it from the outside perspective. It looks like it was a very fast crash. But from my perspective, my body slowed everything down. It's pretty crazy thinking back of experiencing that. It was in complete slow motion for me. And I had enough time to think, okay, lift up my head. And lifting up my head is why it saved my brain, probably. Which was great. And that's why my neck took the brunt of it. Right. But the first thing is, like, your body is such an incredible kind of system. Yes, it is. And yes, so, that was the first thing. But then, and the easiest thing was to get back up, because that's just something that was taught to me from such a young age, right? Like, you fall down, you get back up. So I right away walked away, and that was the easy part. But the hard part came after that, once I kind of settled into the recovery process, and I had to allow my bones to heal, and then getting moving again past that was the challenging part. You're really stiff. Like, your body goes into protection mode when you have that kind of traumatic of an injury. So I did not want to, my body didn't want to allow me to move for a while. So that was pretty challenging to break through. I couldn't do this, now I can do this. And that's really impressive after you can't do that. Right. But I think the thing that got me started, because I really didn't have any belief in myself at that point.
Right.
Was talking to actually a different coach, and he believed in me in that moment. We were out on a walk, and I needed a World Cup medal that next season to maintain my team status. Right. And I was so fragile, and I felt so far away from medaling, kind of shape. And I said, do you think I can do it? And he like stopped and thought about it. He didn't just give me a knee-jerk reaction and said, yes, I think you can. He really thought about it. And so when he told me yes, I believed that he believed himself, and that started it.
Right. Mm-hmm. It is always interesting when you're looking for that belief in that person who takes a pause, takes a breath, and actually process what you're asking, and you can tell they're going through all the different scenarios before they give you an answer. It's that thing that athletes need to feel that, get that belief back and that trust back. That, okay, all right, I'm ready to put the work in to get myself back to this sport.
Right, and I think if he had just said, "Of course," you can do it, I wouldn't have believed him. Exactly. I'm like, you're just being blindly positive. This is not real, right? But I could see that he actually believed it. So I just had to trust in him and not in myself at that moment.
Absolutely. Which I think is those combination of athletes. We, at some point we have to take it out of our hands, give it to someone else, and then slowly kind of move it back into our hands. And so, which ultimate paid off for you, so when I think about your comeback, how did you get back into a sport that almost took everything from you?
Gosh, how did I? At first, it was me just saying, okay, I'm going to do one thing a day to be better, because that felt doable. So it started with, all right, what am I doing today to be a little bit better? And some days that was just making it to the running track and doing kind of like that, my run. And that was it. And then some days it was, all right, the full program. All right, let's do this and kind of dig into it. So that was, at first, it was one thing a day. And then I relied on my team. I think that Luge is an individual sport, right? I compete individually, but we definitely train as a team, especially the U.S. team. We're pretty special about that. And I knew that they were returning to ice in October. They were going to Norway to get back on ice. And I just kind of was like, you know what? If I'm not with them getting back on ice this time, then I don't know if I'm going to do it. So I just went with my team. And when you're surrounded by people that are doing it, it makes it a little bit easier. And then I just had to take that leap and do it. But it definitely was not easy. I physically threw up every run when I was getting back into it, because my body wasn't trained correctly. Right. All of the stress on my neuromuscular system was a lot that I was not prepared for, because I hadn't had a typical year of training. So my body was not ready, but I just took the leap.
Yeah. Well, I want to go back to, I think becoming one of your favorite words here is composure. How did you rebuild composure, when you had real fear?
I don't know. I think that fear itself is very real. Mm-hmm. It's a very real feeling. It's also something that you can kind of like breathe through. And if you breathe through it, then it gets you to a place where you can make a decision instead of running or avoiding or whatever. So I would use my breath to kind of breathe down through the fear. And then I knew that it was a choice. And then I had to think, what kind of person do I want to be? What choice do I want to make in this moment?
Right. What I've learned is fear is really just energy trying to escape. And so that's why the breath is really important, to allow it to escape so your brain can then come back into focus to make the right decision. So that's the psychology brain in me now, that some of the field that I'm working in, I'm learning more about how do I manage my fear, because again, we'll get to it, but that transition, the fear transitioning from something you've done your whole life, and how do you meet those moments, and a lot of breath work has been integrated into my toolbox to make sure I can manage that. So
that's good. Then that makes me feel more prepared for my own transition, because I've been prepped in that category.
As I told you, those tools that we develop in sports, the things that we are building, that foundation, it is transferable without a doubt. So we'll get into that. But what I want to do is I want you to describe, take me through that first moment that you went when you were able to go full speed again. What was happening for you internally?
Internally, let's see. It's a lot of doubt the first time, right? Before you pull off, because in luge there's no brakes. So once you commit, it's like a roller coaster in that sense, where like once the ride starts, you're in it until the end. So, but the doubt wasn't about my like mental capabilities. It was, is my body going to withstand this? Is my neck strong enough to hold my head up? Mm-hmm. And I think I realized it's like, well, there's only one way to find out. So there we go.
Gotta do it. Gotta
do it now or never. Or now or until the next time you say no and you try again. But that hurdle is never going to get smaller.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, you make this amazing comeback. You come back, you win the champion bronze 2019. Then you go on and win it again in 2025. You know, because I could imagine, you know, because we're talking about those hundredths of a second, what changed for you as a competitor to know that you can compete at the level that you wanted to get in that medal circle?
I think that when you go through something so challenging as kind of like a large injury, you learn lessons about yourself that you don't really learn any other way. For me, as I'm building back into sport, I have so much more body awareness than I did prior to my injuries. And that has become kind of my superpower. Within this sport, I think like my feeling of my body in the sled is so much more developed because I had to do hours of physical therapy to get there. I had to be more aware of all those tiny little muscles that are working in our spines and everything. So I think that's what led me back to being better.
Yeah, things that we don't even think about as kids. They just train the multifidus, the rectus spinae, and all those things that are just naturally developed. And then once you injure the back, then you have to learn and mentally do it because it's not something you just go lift a weight to do.
No. And I had a lot of silent tears in sports medicine, right? Like as you're working through things, you're just like, it's just tears. And you're like, there's nothing you can do about it because it is a painful process. But
Yes.
But it makes your life so much better on the other side of that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think I've gone through several back injuries and herniated disc. I actually have 2 herniated discs now in my neck and one in my mid-thoracic that I'm working through. And so it's
brutal.
And it's brutal. It's very brutal.
Yeah.
And
mobility is so important.
It's so important. It's so important. I mean, you know, you forget, you know, I forgot that how important my mobility was. And I jumped back in the gym about 6-7 months ago and I'm starting to move heavyweight again. And then all of a sudden I realized, oh, my neck is starting to bother me. My back is starting to bother me. And now I'm back realizing, oh, I got to get mobile again. So I'm back in the gym now. You know, the first 30, 40 minutes I'm in the gym is all mobility work.
Yes, me too.
So I got that reminder.
My younger teammates can already be almost done with their lift as I'm starting mine. Guys,
exactly.
You're taking it for granted here. And that's fine because you can right now, but just at least enjoy it, you know, like appreciate what you have right now.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, what was that feeling inside when you completed the win? You know, did you learn something about yourself? You know, was there overjoy excitement that it took you a while to realize what you have accomplished after coming back from an injury like that?
I think so. I medaled my first World Cup back, and that I got 3rd in Whistler, Canada, and that was just relief. It wasn't joy. It was just like, it was confirmation that like I can do that. I did it. You know, I did it, right. And that was such a challenging process, but it was just the lightest that I felt. And then I was on the ground. I was on the floor in the 90-90 position for the rest of the day because I took everything that I had to get that. But I was great. I was happy being on the floor because I had done it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Oh, just so much. I think the relief of completing when you go through an injury and you complete a game, you complete something, you realize, okay, all right.
You're like,
okay.
Yeah. All those steps, they got me here. Yeah.
Yes. It's a long process through rehab. So I'm going to give you a couple more words here. And I'm kind of curious of if you're going to reframe them for me. So is coming back more about strength or acceptance?
Oh, goodness. I would say it's more about acceptance.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Can I throw another word in there?
Yes, I love it. Yes.
I would say for me, it was about learning respect for myself. So that could be accepting it. But for me, it was like, I really had to realize that like, I have to respect my capabilities and also like what is a no-go.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we got to kind of get into as we start to kind of wrap up here, a segment I like to think about when you are, from a legacy standpoint, what do you want to leave the sport? You're married to another elite luger. How do you start the world with someone that's truly understand that, the challenges, that you go in and day out? I think it's important when you think about athletes, having that partner or someone on the other side to understand what you go through day in and day out.
Yeah, I mean, I'm so lucky. My husband, Dominic, he's on the Italian team. So from another nation, but in the same sport. We've basically grown up together. So we started dating when we were 16. And so it's been half of our lives that we've been together. So I really don't know anything but having that person there. So it's hard for me to say, but I just appreciate what we have so much. Like he's the best. Everyone should feel that way about their partner, but I really like he's the best. I'm just we can talk about anything. He never makes me feel guilty for anything that I'm feeling, that I'm going through or anything. Like he's just always there to be there while I go through it. And that's all I expect from him, right? Is to be there. Because it's not super relatable when I say I broke my neck and my back sliding down a mountain at X amount of miles an hour, but overcoming fear and doubt and all of those things are relatable.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, again, back to the legacy piece of it, you have an amazing story. You've overcome a lot. What do you want young athletes, especially girls, to learn from your journey?
I think that, within Luge specifically, now athletes are allowed to wear a neck collar, which was not possible before. So there has been a physical change to our equipment allowances, which is fantastic. So that's kind of like a material item that will be there past me. But then outside of that, I think that it would be just don't limit yourself, right? I think most people, when they saw my crash, thought that was a career ender. And I've had a lot of athletes who have had large injuries after that kind of come to me and say, hey, like, what was that like for you? Like, what was that process like? And I think that as long as you accept that, all right, so a lot of times it's going to feel like you take one step forward and two steps back, but like those steps forward add up if you just keep going. So don't let anything push you out. Just keep thinking, I want to move forward, and it's going to be backwards a little bit. But if you just keep sticking to it, you'll get there.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you think about, the word legacy, what does that mean to you now versus?
I don't know. Sorry, that's my honest answer. If I'm being honest, I think that we're all, as athletes, we're a cog in the wheel, and we do our best to bring whatever team were on a little bit farther than when they were before. But I also believe that after I'm gone, someone else is going to be that cog in the wheel. So, so I'm just I've accepted that. And I think that I'm going to do my best while I'm here. But I hope that the people who come up behind me move that a little farther. Like I want them to be better.
Right. Now, when you think about you're getting to a place where you're starting to kind of contemplate what a transition look like, how does fear creep into that aspect of transitioning? And then is there any question that you may have for me in a transition that I could lend some wisdom to?
Yeah. Oh, I like that. I don't have fear with this one, with leading into this, because I think when I wrecked myself, when I crashed really hard, everything stopped for me. So I feel like I've already experienced that emptiness that a lot of people feel like immediately after a transition. And I feel like I'm aware that that's a period of time, and I'm actually excited about the different versions of myself that I'm going to be able to meet now. That might sound a little crazy, but does that make sense to you? I guess my question is, absolutely. Do you feel like I think in order to be an athlete at like certain levels, you have to be so focused, and you kind of block out some of who you are. Yeah. So have you experienced kind of opening up your aperture to yourself in a way? Does that make sense?
Yes, okay. Absolutely. I think that's the real key, in my opinion. My opinion is the amount of work that I've done on self over the last, 8 to 9 years has been I tell people when you play a sport, like you say, you almost kind of feel like you're hypnotized. Yeah. You almost feel like that personal growth is stunted, but in the sense of like you have a schedule. You've been told what to do, where to be, and how to do it for so long that personal growth of being able to dive all the way into self, to really learn what you like, what you don't like, how do you accomplish things, learning those skill sets that you develop in sports like leadership, composure, communication style. How does that fit for you? And so the process that I've had to go through to really do that is taking me all the way back to my childhood. That's why these conversations are fun for me to have a conversation around, because what I realized that we all kind of go through certain micro traumas. And the way I grew up in Mississippi, not having much, but having a lot of love, I had to go back and reparent a lot of my young self, because I had to grow up early. I was a kid that was at the age of 7, had to grow up and help my mom with brothers and sisters, because my mom had me at a young age. And so I really had to go dive back into that younger self to reparent that younger self, so that I can then remove some of those blockers that I carried through sports, that I didn't know I carried through sports, so that they don't carry on, to my kids, but then two, into the next career field that I had. And it takes a tremendous amount of work and self-awareness to understand that, sports is not my identity, is who I was. And it doesn't mean that you get caught up in the identity of sports, but when you are able to recognize and realize that it was part of who you were, and now that you use the sport, you done the sport, you got the foundation. Now how do I take that and transition it to a different environment? And I think that really means going back into self. And so spend some time in the self. Yeah. Learning about yourself. Don't be afraid of the things that come up that you didn't realize, that you didn't know. But one more question
for you.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that I love about being on a team and in a sports sense is that I have access to all my teammates right now, and I could say, hey, anyone want to go do this? Anyone want to go do that? And if there's any kind of activity, chances are someone's going to say yes. So have you found, and I'm kind of afraid of losing that, right? Because so that's the one thing that I'm afraid of, I think, is that, I'm going to have to build another community outside of sport, and like, what was that like for you?
Yeah, I think football is a little different. I mean, I totally miss the locker room, being able to joke and laugh with my teammates. But there's also a part of it is, a lot of guys have their own families. They, especially when you come in younger, you got older guys who, doing their own thing, and the time that you got was right there in the locker room. And so that definitely is something that you would miss. But as you start to make that transition out, you're afraid of detaching from that without realizing that, this new community that you're building based off the new passions that you go into can be just as powerful as those relationships you have in a locker room. Completely different, but that personal growth that you go to, it still makes it very special to develop and do that. And again, it wasn't easy at first. I wanted to be off playing golf. All my buddies are calling and saying, "Hey, let's go play golf." And I'm like, I'm walking into a meeting, or I'm doing this, or I'm, in this, trying to learn about technology, trying to learn about psychology. And so, but what you end up doing is creating a team within that. And I've been fortunate and blessed to build a company where, I'm the CEO of a company called Team Q, where I've now built a new community of team members. But then on the outside of that, I get that locker room feel with my team. But then on the outside of that, I have a lot of people that I can sit down, mentors that I can sit down with and continue to develop and grow as an entrepreneur. And so you end up with multiple teams outside of that locker room. And so it is scary. I'm not gonna lie to you. It's scary at first, but you do get to the other side of that.
I think I'm not ready. I have the Olympics coming up in about 3 weeks, but but after that, maybe it'll be fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Emily, as we start to wrap up, a couple more things I like to ask. The one thing that I think about is when we go back to thinking about our younger self, and you think about some of the injuries that we've gone through. When you think about the speed, the success, the expectations, those things have been everything for you for a long time. What would you want your younger self to understand about those moments, and if you can go back and talk to her?
I think I would want to just kind of, well, first of all, I don't know what I would have listened to because I was a really stubborn kid.
That's why this is a hindsight question.
Okay, hindsight question.
It's a hindsight question.
But I think what I would have liked to have known is that each challenge was just building me for the next one. And like anything can feel heavy if you're like, I hurt my wrist before I had to have wrist surgery when I was younger, and that felt so challenging. But and then when I broke my neck and my back, I was like, man, I wish it was just a wrist, So each little challenge was just prepping me for the next one.
Yeah, I know that's funny you say that, because I think about I broke my hand and then I hurt my back. I had surgery, plating 8 screws, and then I hurt my back, and I'm like, oh my God, I can go back to that hand any day of the week.
Any day. But then you meet someone, like I'll have a younger athlete come up to me and say, man, I have like I have that broken wrist. It's so challenging. How did I get through that? And then sometimes they'll say, but I know it's nothing compared to a neck and a back. And I say, no. Whatever is heavy for you is heavy. So,
right.
But all of those, it's the same as lifting weights. Like that heaviness just preps you for the next one. And you can handle that a little lighter.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Emily, this has been amazing. My last question for you is, when you think back from 10 years old all the way through where you are now, what would you say the intangibles that have made you who you are?
I think my parents were really good about mandating that I was a good winner and a good loser. So I think from a young age, that was big. Sportsmanship is extremely important in my household. My dad was very strict about that one. And he wasn't like a strict dad. Like this was not something that was across the board, but being a good sport and being kind of a good winner and a good loser. And I think that applied to myself as well. Like when I had those wins and losses, I had to be I was super grumpy. Like I was very emotional about those things, but you go shake the hands, you go show up, you go do what is necessary in those winning and losing moments.
Yeah. So being humble. Yeah. Awesome. Well, Emily, your story has been a masterclass of courage, composure, and trust. Thank you for really diving into it and sharing your side and your story. I think hopefully someone who's listened to this podcast will take something from it. Hopefully any young woman or any athlete who is going through anything challenging can listen to your story and feel some hope that don't limit ourselves and keep pushing. And so as we do know that talent opens the doors, but intangible keeps you there. So Thank you for sharing your story. This has been a fun podcast.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. This is great. And I love it. Like you're so right. All of these things are important and they're in all of us. So why not optimize them?
Absolutely.